Hello and welcome to another edition of Happenings.
Really is all about and bringing the community to the school.
In the schools, developing relationships with students, with parents. No, we just taped a show on that.
Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Happenings in the Dearborn Public Schools, the 2018-19 version. I'm David Mustonen, Director of Communications for the Dearborn Public Schools. Here we are, another season, another year. Dr. Maleyko, Glenn, welcome.
How you doing, David?
We're ready.
We got a new set, right?
We got a new set. Looks a little different this year. We're going to try some things a little different and see what we can do, kind of experiment. We may be back at Dearborn High later in the year, but for now we're here in our facilities here at the boardroom just to try out our new equipment and give our new equipment a run for their money, see how it works. So we're here with 18-19, off to a good year, good start. We're off and running, lots of good things happening, and a staple item that's been kind of with us now for a few years.
Yeah, now
Students
we're
first.
Going into our third year with the strategic plan, and I know we declared this the year of health in Dearborn, the mayor and the city council, and we have. Well, I think for the show, maybe we can, this is the year of the students, although every year is the year of the students.
Every year.
So in order to tribute our students who are doing some great things, we've got a lot of positive awards, a lot of sports teams doing well, individual students groups, we have blue ribbon schools, we have the district being recognized and accredited. I think we should tribute the students because I know, you know what the students want when I come to the buildings, right?
They want the selfies, Glenn.
All right, so you got to get over here.
All right, quick.
Tom, hold this.
Quick.
We can't.
Here we go.
We can't let them down. And I'm a left-handed selfie guy, and I do not need the sticks. I've got great reach.
All right. This is a first, folks.
Live.
We've
done it on
selfies on the air.
We've done it
Live
on
selfies
graduation,
on the air.
but never that
Wow.
way. And my reach is really good for playing hockey too. By the way,
Okay.
getting around
Yeah,
defense.
good.
So.
All right. Well, okay, we got that done. Got that out of the way. Selfie on air, first time. Good. Breaking new grounds. And also breaking new ground here, a couple of guests joining us. Tom Wall, Executive Director of Business Services. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
All right. Josh Tynan, Principal at Nowlin Elementary School.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about infrastructure. This kind of carried over from last year. We talked about the high school capacity issues that we've been working on, that overpopulation at the high school. We did some things back in March of 2018 to start to fix that issue with some boundary changes. But we also needed to have some improvements or expansion to alleviate that. We also know that we have infrastructure needs with a lot of beautiful buildings but old. I was recently at the 100-year celebration of Salina, which is a beautiful building, but again, as buildings get old, they need upkeep. So, Tom, you and Josh chaired this committee. Can you tell us what this infrastructure committee was about? That started in August, I believe, and then we just ended a study session at the end of October.
At the board meeting when we decided back in March, we had a short-term plan and a long-term plan. So we implemented the short-term plan by looking at some of the boundaries for the high schools, and that's going to get phased in over the 4 years. Long-term, we knew we had a bigger task event, so we created an infrastructure task force to kind of put together and generate recommendations to the Board of Education. So with that, Josh, I'll let you take it from there.
And what we did, we were really tasked with 4 different things. We had to look at infrastructure, we had to look at capacity, we had to look at safety and security, and we had to look at air conditioning. With our task force, we put out an invitation to a little over 60 members of the community. We got about 40 to show up consistently. We had 6 different meetings, and we started those meetings by going slow to go fast. So the first couple of meetings really involved informing the community on what the task was, the age of our buildings. Tom did a great job of updating on finances and how bonds work. And then we rolled into doing tours of the buildings, and then we looked at more to see what really we needed and what was the requirements. What was the priority? Was air conditioning a priority? Was infrastructure a priority? And we really got into the meat and potatoes of it. It was a great involvement of the community. You want to talk a little bit about the finance component?
Well, just before that, but it was not a committee that we put together. We reached out to all the committees or groups and entities that work with the schools, and they got to choose who to be on the committee. So we, like as Josh said, we really had to kind of bring them along because some of them have never set his foot in the schools before. So it was very important for us to start slow, make them learn about it, and then go from there.
And I wasn't on it. There weren't any board members on it. The board did have some recommendations that they could have sit on the committee, but in some of them may have just been groups in the community like Rotary, or have AAYSP, which is a group down at the south end. You have different group access. We can name the colleges. We could name a lot. And I remember too, when the invitations were sent out, we didn't choose the individual. We let the groups choose, right? I mean, that was the thing to try to get more of a community.
And it really ended up being also people who. What was nice at several of the roundtable discussions that I was at, they weren't necessarily involved in the schools in any way. They didn't have grandchildren. They didn't have children, but they were involved in the community. And they realized that a good school system involves a good community. And so it was really a broad spectrum of the Dearborn community. It wasn't limited to, oh, my child is at this school, so I have an agenda. It was really what's best for the city.
And then we did have three at the end. I know you had 3 community members that did speak out and presented the recommendations. It was Judge Marion Bazzi, Donna Stanley, Tom Trimble, and individuals that are involved in different, entities within the community. Can you let us know, here on the show, what are those recommendations, the main recommendations that came from the committee?
What came from the committee is we identified that the infrastructure was really the first priority. Kind of what you had led to, Dr. Maleyko, is Salina is 100 years old. We have several buildings in the district that are aging. Our budget geared towards being able to make those improvements is not very large for the age of our buildings. And so the community really identified that we have beautiful buildings, but they just need some work. And then what's tied into that, and the two kind of went hand in hand, was addressing the capacity issues. As was mentioned, we have talked about capacity in the past. We've done some boundary realignments, but really to be successful in the long-term planning, we had to continue to look at capacity. Then, of course, safety and security. We want our students to be safe, and there's some updates that need to be done on that. And then air conditioning as well. The recommendation that we had made to the board was not how to spend the money, but more of this is where, as a community, we feel the money should be spent.
And then I know you also came up with, the amount of what they're recommending to the board to go for a potential bond. I don't know, Tom.
Right, and we do a lot of long-term planning in the district. So this all started really back in 2016 when the interest rates were very low. We were able to go back and refinance some old bonds back from the 2002 series. And that kind of set the table for us to be able to, in next year or so, instead of our rates going down, we can now look at keeping a no-mill increase and generate funds for capital improvements in the district. And so we're looking at the recommendation from the committee or the task force, was to look at a no-mill increase. This means maintaining what we're currently levying for mills, and that could generate roughly $207 million for us to actually do capital improvements. Now, the $207 million sounds like a lot, but when you look at our 3.2 billion square foot, it doesn't really go a long ways when you look at that kind of aspect. And construction is expensive. And actually, the economy itself, with all the returning back from the recession, that those costs are starting to rise also. So that $207 million won't go as far as we need, but it's a big help for us to get to where we need to be.
I think too, so the committee made those kind of, like Josh said, set some priorities, and that was what they really made the recommendations to the board, was kind of setting those priorities of what this task force felt was the most important part. I think infrastructure was the issue that they put at the top of that priority list, followed by capacity needs, but meeting those capacity needs in line with curriculum and instruction, not just building to build, but building to match what we're doing on the instructional side. And then I thought the third priority was the safety and security, and then air conditioning was the fourth priority.
Right.
Knowing that the dollar amounts generated would not be able to do all of those things, but at least it now helps the board decide, okay, this is the priorities that this task force felt we should spend our money. So if we have X number of dollars, here's how we should be spending it, and here's how we should look. That's kind of what I felt was their focus of their presentation.
Right, and the tricky part about the task force was really, we just had to say, is there a need for the district to do something to make sure our buildings stay current and stay fresh? We did not direct the board to say, oh, we need a classroom here, or we need to do something here. It was more of, here's as a community what we feel needs to happen to make sure that our community stays well and our buildings stay well. But it wasn't directing at what specifically to spend the money on.
And two, just for those who are watching, we're talking about 32 different buildings, 32 schools, 32 buildings across the district. As we said, some of them up to, starting in 2020, we have 2 schools in 2020, Salina, Duval, turning 100. And then for the next 10 years, about another 10 or so schools turning 100 years old. Good shape, the buildings are in good shape, but obviously need some infrastructure. Now that word infrastructure can be kind of all-encompassing. So, Tom, maybe what were some of the specifics when we talk about infrastructure? What are some of those specific things that we're looking at doing in these buildings?
Well, we talk about bond funds. So what a concern a lot of taxpayers have is that's going to go to the operational side of the district, pay for salaries or increases. We can't do that. State statutes decide specifically what we can do that for. So you're looking like brick and mortar type stuff. You're looking at roofs, plumbing, sidewalks, parking lots, those kind of large ticket. Boilers was another big one, yes. So those are the kind of things we're looking at that we need to replace. Now, when you do all that work, you can still paint and do furniture and stuff like that, but it has to be a plan that we submit to the state to review before we go out for the bond.
Okay.
I just want to add, too, we have our engineers that we have in our district, and they do a great job maintaining the buildings and keeping them up, especially the old buildings. But when I became superintendent, because of the budgetary issues that late Superintendent Whiston had to deal with to ensure stability for our district, we had a building and site fund that was at $300,000 to repair buildings all across the district per year.
That used to be at $3 million.
Yeah, and now
that was down
actually
to
it was $7 million at one point per year, and we've gotten it up, I think, now at almost is it $4 million, Tom?
3.2.
3.2. So we've gotten it up, but even for a district our size, there's just no way. So when people talk about air conditioning, it's going to cost us $50 to $60 million. There's no room within the budget to do that. There just isn't. We're spending the $400,000 to $500,000 to phase in, but that will not do the full district. So, that's just an important factor for people to be aware, because during those tough times, we didn't cut the classrooms. We tried not to cut students and the needs in the classroom, but eventually the infrastructure does catch up with you.
So just as we've a couple minutes here before we wrap up, just moving forward, what are we looking at moving forward? What can the community look for moving forward from this point?
Well, at the next, so I don't know when this is going to air, but we finished the final study session and the recommendations. We have the recommendations for the committee as an action item for the next board meeting on Monday, November 12th.
Okay.
So that's not a final say by the board, but what that would be is just to give us direction to start planning for a potential bond in November of 2019, because that's what the committee had recommended with a no-mill increase. Okay. So if we get affirmative support for the board on that, then we will start moving forward with the planning and getting into more specifics, the meat and potatoes. That would take us into, I believe, Tom, you said we'd have to decide by about April if we really wanted to move forward with the state.
Right, it has to go to the state for approval, so it has to be vetted through the state to make sure that it's an appropriate expense for schools, because we are talking about taxpayers' money.
Sure, absolutely. All right, well, definitely more to come in the weeks ahead. Maybe we can even do a couple special shows just to kind of highlight some of this, because I know these guys love being on camera with us here.
Sure.
Joining us on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. But one thing we can't do without before we leave is football. We got a couple of things to talk about.
Okay.
Fortson going in tonight,
absolutely.
so we know this is airing.
Yeah,
they beat Cass Tech, and there's a game tonight, a big game so we obviously are hoping for the tractor victory.
Definitely.
And then the same color team at the college level seems to be doing quite well, David. I'm sure you're pretty pleased with that.
Very excited about that.
Yeah.
Yes, very, very. Well, my daughter's very excited about that.
Okay. So
we
hope the maize and blue can finally pull one off against Ohio State coming up in a few weeks. So
I think this is their year. I mean, that defense is just incredible.
Yeah,
It's just an incredible defense. So this is their year.
Yeah. I agree.
I have to say it.
Don't jinx it.
All right, don't jinx it. All right. Well, we won't be jinxing anything here on this show in the future because we're just all about doing good, fun, positive, informative information here on the Happenings show. And we'll be back. There's a lot going on in the Dearborn Public Schools. A lot of kids, almost 21,000 of them, a lot of staff members, almost 2,700 of us. So there's always a lot going on, and there's always a lot happening in the Dearborn Public Schools.